I'm Hazel, 30 years old, Senior Operations Director at Leighton and Crane Logistics, though no one in my family ever seems to remember that. They still talk about me like I'm 15 and flunking chemistry, instead of the woman who keeps a $120 million supply chain running like clockwork. Before I continue, let me know in the comments what part of the world you're watching from. Also subscribe because another story drops tomorrow. Growing up, I was the second child, the invisible one. My brother Marcus, the golden boy, valedictorian, varsity captain, Dad's favorite project. He could do no wrong, even when he did. I, on the other hand, was the messy one. Too loud, too stubborn, too emotional. My wins were flukes. My failures? Well, those were apparently proof that I didn't have what it takes. Even when I landed my first management job at 26, Dad brushed it off. "Middle manager?" he said, swirling his scotch. "Good for you. Maybe next time you'll aim higher." I swallowed the insult, like I always did. See, my father owns a majority stake in Leighton and Crane, the company I now help run. What he never tells anyone is, when supply chains broke down in 2020, I was the one who rebuilt them. I renegotiated contracts, redesigned fulfillment protocols, and expanded our reach internationally. But at home, "You still working for your daddy?" That was Marcus's favorite line. He always said it just loud enough for others to hear. I stopped attending family events years ago. Too many side eyes. Too many unsolicited career tips from uncles who sell insurance out of their garages. But this year, Dad insisted. "It's your grandmother's 85th, he said. She asked for you by name." He never said please. But this time, I felt a tug of obligation. And guilt. Because Nana had always been kind to me, even when no one else was. So, I went. A family reunion at the Hyatt Garden Ballroom. Dozens of Leighton cousins, Crane uncles, and people I hadn't seen in over a decade. They'd flown in from all over. Texas, Georgia, even someone from Ghana. I showed up in a cream silk blouse and tailored navy pants. Understated, professional, forgettable. Exactly how they liked me. The party was in full swing. Buffet lines, music, and picture-taking by the custom 85 Years of Grace floral banner. I made it 10 minutes before someone mentioned Marcus. "You know, he's running a real estate startup now." Aunt Belinda's tone was coated in sugar. "He's doing so well. Raised a seed round from Stanford people." I nodded, smiled, bit my cheek to avoid laughing. I knew his startup. I'd quietly advised one of our vendors not to lease from them after noticing their credit rating. But of course, he was crushing it. Dad gave a toast around 3 p.m., praised Nana's resilience, then veered, like he always did, into family legacy. He boomed about sons who lead and men who build empires. No mention of daughters. Of me. Then, it was Marcus's turn. He grabbed the mic with that smug grin I knew too well. "Some of us build things," he said, pacing like he was on a TED stage. "Others, well, they show up late, offer critiques, then disappear again." People laughed, light chuckles, unsure if it was a joke, but his eyes found mine. And then he said it. And every family has that one person, the useless one. Silence. Then laughter. Louder this time. Some eyes darted to me. Others avoided me entirely. My fingers dug into my palm. I stood up, heart racing. Walked toward the microphone. Marcus's smirk widened. Dad's brows pulled into a warning frown. I took the mic. The ballroom hushed. Even the kids stopped giggling. I looked at Marcus. Then, my father. Then, the room full of people who'd underestimated me for decades. "Funny thing about being called useless," I said calmly. "It tends to light a fire under you." Marcus raised a brow. Dad folded his arms. I continued. "My name is Hazel Leighton, 30 years old, Senior Operations Director of Leighton and Crane." Some people murmured. They hadn't known. "And, as of yesterday," I said, pausing for effect, "acting interim CEO." Gasps. Genuine ones. Dad's jaw tightened. Marcus blinked. I wasn't done. I reached into my bag, pulled out a white envelope, turned to my father. "This is my formal resignation," I said, voice even. Effective immediately. A wave of whispers swept the room. Dad didn't move. Not at first. Just stared at the envelope like it was a live grenade. I kept my eyes on him. "I've been running this company for a year while you traveled, while Marcus dabbled, while everyone assumed I was just tagging along." No one spoke. "But I've had enough. Of being overlooked. Of being drained. Of being called names at parties like this one." I smiled then. A small, calm, terrifying smile. "I'm leaving Layton and Crane, and taking 3 of our top accounts with me." Now that got their attention. Marcus's mouth opened, then closed. Dad stood up, hand trembling slightly. "We need to talk," he said under his breath. "No," I said. "You need to listen." And I walked out. Calm, composed, free. Outside the ballroom, the late afternoon sun hit my face like a spotlight. It felt like a cue from the universe, like I'd finally stepped onto the right stage. Mine. I kept walking. Past valet, past gasping cousins and frozen aunts. Into the parking lot where my silver coupe sat like a quiet escape pod. As soon as I shut the door, my hand started shaking. Not from fear, from release. 6 years of building, strategizing, swallowing insults, and nodding through dismissals. Gone. I just detonated the family myth in one sentence. I wasn't the failure. I was the foundation. And now I was gone. My phone lit up. 10 missed calls, 7 texts from Dad. All variations of, "Come back. We'll talk." "You're being emotional." I blocked the number. Then another message popped up. Not from Dad. From Sandra, my mentor and the chairwoman of our biggest clients advisory board. "Heard what happened. Proud of you. Let's talk next week." I smiled, because Sandra never texted unless something big was in motion. And I knew exactly what that meant. As I pulled out of the lot, I allowed myself to imagine it. My own firm. Hazel Layton Consulting. Independent. Unbought. Unbothered. But I also knew the storm was just beginning. Dad wasn't the type to let things go quietly. Neither was Marcus. That night, I stayed up drafting emails. Not of apology, but of intention. To our 5 top clients, I explained the transition, outlined the timeline, clarified my new role and my continued commitment to excellence. 3 responded within the hour. All said the same thing. Where you go, we go. It was the confirmation I needed. Not just validation, proof. That I hadn't been climbing imaginary stairs. That I wasn't lucky or helped. I was trusted. I was respected. I was necessary. The next day, the phone calls doubled. Dad, HR legal, even Aunt Belinda, trying to mediate. "You embarrassed him," she whispered. "Why couldn't you just talk to him in private?" Because he humiliated me in public. No one asked why Marcus called me useless. No one asked why no one corrected him. They just wanted me quiet again. Contained. Cooperative. Too late. By Tuesday, news had reached the board. Layton and Crane's stock dipped 2.1% before noon. Rumors swirled. That the COO quit. That the daughter declared war. That Marcus might replace me. I laughed at that one. Marcus couldn't even manage a team of 3 interns. He once hosted a Zoom call on mute for 40 minutes. But what none of them knew was what I had in my inbox. Sandra's offer came Wednesday. Not just mentorship. Funding. A full partnership. "We'll back your firm," she wrote. "We've been waiting for you to realize they don't deserve you." That was the sentence that made me cry. Because it was true. They didn't. And I was done trying to earn crumbs of recognition. Thursday morning, I filed incorporation papers. Hazel Layton and Company. Focus. Logistics optimization and crisis-ready operations. That same day, Marcus posted on LinkedIn. "Proud to be stepping up at Layton and Crane in a new leadership capacity." No mention of me, no gratitude, just him in a too tight suit, looking like he borrowed Dad's watch in confidence. The comments under the post made my blood simmer. "Well deserved," A true visionary. Finally, someone strong at the helm. I wanted to reply. To tag the 700-slide logistics overhaul presentation I'd written. To post receipts, literally. But I didn't. I let it ride. Because the best responses aren't typed. They're built. Brick by brick. By Friday, our former head of East Coast operations reached out. He wanted in. He said he'd been waiting for this split, that he was tired of being undercut by the boys' club upstairs. I told him I had space for one more partner. He said yes before I finished the sentence. By Sunday, Marcus called. Not text, not email, a direct call. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message. Short, sharp. You really think you can do this without the family name? I hit delete. Then whispered to myself, I'm counting on it. The following Monday, I showed up to the Leighton and Crane Tower one last time, not as an employee, as a woman tying off loose ends. I took the elevator to the 23rd floor, nodded at the receptionist, and headed straight to my old office. The nameplate still read Hazel Leighton, Director of Operations. It wouldn't for long. Inside, I packed slowly. Framed certificates. A custom-made mug that said, Queen of Contingency Planning, the bonsai I'd nursed back to life after it was left for dead in a boardroom. Each item was a memory. Each memory a bruise. HR sent an intern to oversee the exit. Her name was Krista. She looked nervous. She also looked like she'd Googled me. You, really built the Asia hub, didn't you? She asked as I unplugged my desktop. I did. That's wild. Everyone thinks Marcus did. Of course they did. He didn't? He toured it once, after it was built. Her jaw dropped a little. Then she whispered, I hope you make them eat their words. I smiled. Not my job anymore. But I was going to. In my own way. As I rolled my cart toward the elevator, I passed Marcus. He was standing near the boardroom with a new intern, loudly explaining a concept he clearly didn't understand. Our eyes met. He smirked. I didn't. I just kept walking. Because I'd outgrown petty. But I hadn't outgrown proof. That evening, I uploaded our official announcement. Hazel Leighton and Company is now open for business. Independent. Global. Uncompromising. The post went viral. People I hadn't heard from in years flooded my inbox. Old mentors. Vendors. Former coworkers whispering, finally. We got 3 inquiries within 24 hours. All major players. All frustrated with red tape and clueless middlemen. The cherry on top? Baya. One of them had just pulled out of a deal with Leighton and Crane the previous week. Their project manager messaged me directly. Honestly, we were hoping you'd jump ship. We wanted you, not them. Dad called again that night. I still hadn't unblocked him. He left a voicemail, heavy with something between desperation and disdain. We need to discuss the contracts you're trying to poach. This isn't how professionals operate, Hazel. I didn't respond, but I made a note to call our lawyer. Everything I'd done was legal. Clean. Prepped. I wasn't trying to destroy Leighton and Crane. I was simply taking what I built with me. What was mine. By week's end, the cracks were showing. 2 clients formally notified Dad's company of termination. Both cited leadership transition and strategic misalignment. Translation. They didn't trust Marcus, they trusted me. I received an email from the board's assistant. They wanted to schedule a meeting. Not with Dad, with me. Apparently, some of the senior partners wanted to, quote, understand the nature of your exit. I agreed to meet, but only if it was off-site, neutral ground. We met at a downtown cafe on a rainy Thursday. I wore black, sharp heels, and no apologies. They arrived tense. 4 of them. All older. All men who once spoke over me in meetings. Now they leaned in, listening, asking questions. I gave them the truth. How I had led through crisis. How I had been ignored, minimized, passed over, while Marcus stumbled upward. One of them looked genuinely embarrassed. Another one asked if I'd ever consider coming back. I laughed, not mockingly, just freely. No, but I'd consider consulting. There was a pause. Then they asked for my rate. I gave it. Double my old salary. No meetings unless I call them. And all reports submitted to me, not Dad. They didn't say no. When I got back to my office, my new one, with exposed brick and fresh flowers, our team had just finished onboarding our fourth client, the same week we launched. We celebrated with cheap champagne and delivery sushi. I let them crank up the music. Let myself laugh without scanning for Marcus's eye roll or Dad's sigh. At 10:13 p.m., I stood by the window and looked out over the city. My city, my rules, my story. By the second month, we'd landed a government contract. Small, but prestigious. The kind that makes headlines in trade magazines. I didn't announce it publicly. Didn't have to. The right people heard. And more doors opened. But with success came surveillance. Dad began sending feelers. Indirect ones. Emails from former colleagues asking if I was open to collaboration. Sudden LinkedIn requests from board members who hadn't acknowledged my existence for 5 years. I didn't bite. I was building something real. Not patching holes in a sinking ship. Marcus, meanwhile, started spiraling. He released a company video trying to explain Leighton and Crane's new direction. It was a disaster. Buzzwords, no substance, zero understanding of operations. People noticed. Clients started whispering about instability. One even asked if I offered crisis management consulting. I didn't yet, so I created a new division that week. Within 3 days, we had our first client. A Fortune 500 company hemorrhaging money from outdated systems. I assembled a task force. People I'd trained over the years, quiet geniuses overlooked by loud men. We delivered a full audit and blueprint within 11 days. The CEO called me personally. I don't know what you charge, but whatever it is, it's worth it. I doubled our rates. Word got around. That's when Dad invited me to dinner. Just us. At his private club. I declined. Politely. He tried again, this time through Nana. She called me herself. He's proud of you, sweetheart. He just doesn't know how to say it. I sighed. He knew how to call me useless through Marcus. Silence. Then, he's old, set in his ways. But he's not blind. I agreed to meet. At my terms. Neutral place. Midtown Bistro. When I arrived, he was already seated. No scotch, just water. He stood. That surprised me. Dad never stood for anyone. Hazel, he nodded, gestured for me to sit. I read the trade article, he began, about the crisis contract. Smart move. Thank you. A beat passed. He looked older, tired, not just physically, structurally. We made mistakes, he said. About you, about your role here. I waited. You were always the one actually holding things together. We just didn't see it. You didn't want to see it. He nodded again. Didn't argue. Progress. Then came the ask. He leaned in. The board is considering a restructuring. New leadership model. They'd like you to consult. There it was. I'd be a consultant, I clarified, not an employee. Of course. And I set the terms. He hesitated. Then, yes. I sipped my water, looked out the window. I'll think about it, I said. We both knew that meant yes, on my terms, at my price. When the check came, he reached for it. I stopped him. I've got this one. He didn't fight me, he just looked at me like he was seeing something he didn't want to admit. A leader. A storm. His replacement. Later that night, I got a text from Marcus. Nice move. You win. I didn't reply. This wasn't a game. It was survival. Evolution. And I wasn't finished yet. By the start of our third month, my firm had doubled in size. Not in headcount. We were still lean. But in presence, in weight, in relevance. We were no longer a whisper in the industry. We were a name people dropped in meetings to sound ahead of the curve. Our fifth client was a tech startup that had just secured Series B funding. They needed supply chain redesign fast. The kind of chaos that used to keep me up at night. Now it excited me. While my team handled that, I focused on the board consultation Dad had requested. The first meeting was held in a glass-walled conference room at a boutique consulting firm we'd partnered with. 6 board members showed. Dad, too. Marcus was conspicuously absent. I opened with data, performance metrics, market gaps, client churn under current leadership. They listened, actually listened. Even the one who once told me I was too young to lead. Dad didn't speak until the end. "We underestimated you," he said, flat, factual, like it hurt to say. I nodded, not because I needed the admission, because I wanted it on the record. After the session, I left them with a plan. 3 phases of restructuring, each one tied to accountability. I gave them 90 days. If they followed through, I'd continue consulting. If they didn't, I'd walk. And take more clients with me. 2 days later, I got a message from Marcus. Just 1 sentence. "What do you want?" I stared at the screen. Typed. Deleted. Typed again. Then I replied, "I want you to stop using my name to build your career." He didn't reply. Didn't have to. Because the next day, he made his account private and quietly stepped down as Chief Strategy Officer, a role no one could define anyway. That same week, Nana called again, softer this time. "I hear you've been shaking things up." "Trying to." "Well," she chuckled, "better than playing small. You were never meant for small." It meant more than she knew, coming from the only person who'd never tried to clip my wings. That weekend, I took a drive, upstate, to clear my head. I pulled over at a rest stop and scrolled through old photos on my phone. Me and Marcus as kids. Me and Dad on my college graduation day. His arm around me, stiff, unfamiliar. A screenshot of my resignation letter. And finally, a photo of my new team. Laughing. Alive. Free. I sat on a bench and let the wind hit my face. Then I took out a pen and notebook. Not to make a to-do list, but to write something I hadn't let myself believe in a long time. My story isn't over. It's just getting good. The 90-day deadline came fast. The board implemented 2 of the 3 proposed changes. That was enough to keep me consulting. Barely. But I wasn't waiting on them anymore. I had bigger plans. One of our clients, a global freight giant, offered us an exclusive retainer. 6 months. 7 figures. Full strategic authority. I said yes. On one condition, that I choose the on-site project manager. They agreed. I chose Sasha, a woman who'd been overlooked at Leighton & Crane for 5 years. Quiet, precise, brilliant. The same week Sasha signed her contract, she sent me a message. I cried in the bathroom after reading the offer. "No one's ever believed in me like this. Thank you." I stared at the screen for a long time. That was why I did this. Not just to prove a point. To build what I never had. By month 5, we were profitable. Not just sustainable. Profitable. We moved into a new office. Still modest. But ours. No marble floors or glass statues. Just whiteboards, warm lighting, and chairs that didn't hurt your back. One afternoon, while reviewing our next expansion project, I got a calendar invite. From the board. Subject: Recognition Ceremony. Location: Leighton & Crane headquarters. I stared at it. Then laughed. A real, unfiltered laugh. Dad followed up with a voicemail. This time, his voice was different. Worn. Almost reverent. "The board wants to present you with an award. Lifetime contribution. It's overdue. I know that now." I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I reread the message 3 times. Then I called Nana. "Should I go?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said, "but don't go for them. Go for you." So I did. I wore navy. Powerful but understated. The same color I wore the day I walked out. As I stepped into the auditorium, the room hushed. Dad stood at the podium. Next to him, a glass award shaped like a flame. 2 on the nose. He gestured for me to join him. "We built this company," he said, looking at the crowd. "But she saved it. He turned to me, eyes softer. And when we didn't see her, she walked away, built something better, and now we're learning from her. He handed me the award. I took it. The applause was loud. But I didn't smile until I spotted Marcus in the back row. He was clapping too, slower than the rest, but clapping. Later that evening, I stood in my apartment. Award on the kitchen counter. Shoes off. Hair down. I looked out the window. The skyline shimmered. And for the first time in years, I felt calm, whole, unbent, unapologetic. If you've made it this far, let me leave you with this. Being called useless isn't the insult they think it is. Sometimes it's a map. To a door. To a fire. To your voice. And if you've ever been underestimated, laughed at, dismissed, good. That means they didn't see you coming. Now it's your turn. Have you ever had to walk away to be heard? Drop your story in the comments and subscribe, because the next one, you won't want to miss it.